Hey there, welcome to the Posit Data Science Hangout. I'm Libby Heron, and this is a recording of our weekly community call that happens every Thursday at 12 p.m. US Eastern Time. If you are not joining us live, you miss out on the amazing chat that's going on. So find the link in the description where you can add our call to your calendar and come hang out with the most supportive, friendly, and funny data community you'll ever experience. Can't wait to see you there. Today, we are having a career panel. This is a little bit of a shift. We often have just one or two data science leaders here that we get to ask questions to and hang out with for an hour. And today we have three. We have Gabriela de Quiros, Dan Boisvert, and Makarand Malu. And because they all have very varied titles, hats they wear, roles they play, and institutions that they've worked at, I'm going to let them introduce themselves. So, Gabriela, I would love to start with you. Could you please introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about what you do, your background, and something you like to do for fun. And I'll remind you of that one because it's hard to remember.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so happy to be here. It's been a long time since I've been involved in the art community. Um, I'm Gabriela de Queiroz. I am, let's say, a statistician by training, also like epidemiology by training. I did a lot of like epidemiology kind of work in the very early days of my career in research, working with air pollution, and then moved to San Francisco in California. What is 14 years ago, same time that I founded Our Ladies. So if you ever heard about Our Ladies, yes, it started 2012 in October here in San Francisco. It's crazy just to think about it. But anyway, so um, I moved to the industry and worked for a few startups, as you know, as a data scientist wearing different hats, uh, creating R models, statistical models in the back in the days, and then moved to like more like machine learning, Python, and model into production, and then moved to IBM as a what was my title? I don't I think the titles changed so much, and we are going to talk about that. But anyway, I became like an AI developer, and then I started managing and became a manager, and then moved to Microsoft. Was leading a team of AI and ML at Microsoft. Became a director over there, and I got laid off last year. So great stuff to be talking about, and I've been working on my own with my own company for the past year. And what else? I think that's pretty much it.
And think you
One
like
thing
to
that
do
I
for
like
fun.
for
Yeah.
fun. Yes. I've been doing so many things for fun now. I realized that I didn't know much of like enjoy life as much, I would say. So I'm enjoying a lot. What I like to do, I like to dance. I really like to dance.
Oh, awesome. I bet we have some other dancers here. We know we have tons of musicians here. Um, and congratulations to Rob, who just landed a data analytics engineering role. Woohoo! Go, Rob. That's amazing. Okay, that was a quick pause. Let's head over and speak with Dan. Dan Boisvert, could you please introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about what you do and something you like to do for fun.
Well, thanks, Libby. And I believe you're the only person who has ever pronounced my name correctly first time.
Hey,
So I gotta
Rachel
give
does
you,
it right too. I
yeah.
think
So I don't know how
Rachel
you
says
guys
it
do that,
first.
but
Yeah, I learned it from her.
good job. Yeah, my name is Dan Boisvert. I'm senior director and head of data stewardship at Biogen. Biogen's a mid-sized biopharmaceutical company. We're based in Cambridge, but we're worldwide too. Um, my career is a little bit interesting. I don't know. I majored in German. I minored in religious studies. I moved to Germany. I got a job doing SAS programming at Boehringer Ingelheim. Mentioned them earlier. Um, Worked there for a little bit. Came back to the U.S. I worked for a small company for a little while, and then I worked for like an emerging biotech company, and I stayed there for 6 years doing data analytics on clinical trials. Then moved over to Biogen, and I've been here 14 and a half years. Um, We did clinical trial data analysis. Then I did like manage a team that did tools for clinical trial data analytics. And I did technology strategy for, you can guess what. And then last what my last job here is like a data strategy role, clinical data governance, who can use and reuse our clinical trial data, data standards, and some enterprise digital transformation stuff. Happy to be here. You and I have talked before. I'll answer any question anybody asks, and I'll probably with more honesty than maybe you wanted.
Dan is an
Um,
open book. Dan is an open book.
and
What
then
about something you'd like to do
thing
for
fun.
fun?
Last year I started playing pickleball to try to get out and meet more people, and that worked very successfully. So I've been playing a lot of pickleball. That's great. And I started coaching my son's ultimate frisbee team, and I'm just having too much fun with that.
That sounds like a hoot. We already have questions rolling in the Slido, which is very exciting. Don't forget, folks, you could put your name on your question. If you don't want to ask it, you can put asterisks in there. Thank you, Luke, for your asterisks. And also, as we're meeting our guests, if you have a question for one of them specifically, please try to put their name or a description of them. If like you can't, for some reason, you're like, I don't remember Dan's name, but he works in pharma, right? Try you can just describe it and I'll help you get there. But we have one more speaker today. His name is Makarand Malu. Makarand, would you like to introduce yourself and give us a little bit of something you like to do for fun too?
Sure. Thank you, Libby. So glad to be here. Amazing community you have built here. My name's Makrand. I'm in Bay Area. Been working with Google for 13 years. Um, Lost my job, and right now I'm just studying to, prepare myself up. I have been a data scientist for like almost 15 years. Worked with Zynga, gaming company before this. Before that, I was leading a team at PayPal for global products. My I'm an engineer by training. Got into data science because during my research work in a PhD program, I took econometrics as a course, and from there got into a startup, set up a SaaS server, was a SaaS modeler, and then eventually became a data scientist. So that's my journey. For fun stuff, I mostly hike. Hiking is my, free time. Now I've joined a few groups. We all hike during the weekdays. So I could totally relate to, having more free time and how do you leverage that free time for your own growth. And I also bake in my free time. Started with pandemic with sourdough baking, and it continues.
I love it. My husband and I were just baking last night. That's something that we do together all the time. Okay. Well, we are 13 minutes in. That means we have about 45 minutes left to have career conversations. As a sort of primer on topics that we could talk about and that we are open to talking about today, not only with our featured leaders, but also as a community in the chat. Your experience is valid and your wisdom is valid. Please share it with everybody. We can talk about hiring. We can talk about finding jobs. We can talk about portfolios, technical interviews. We can talk about the changes that AI has brought to our industry as data people. We can also talk about layoffs. We can talk about losing our jobs, pivoting, moving roles, asking for promotions, advocating for ourselves and pay. Whatever you would like to talk about. We probably will not get to every single question today, but we are going to try to cover as much as we can and have conversations in the Discord afterwards with more questions that did not get the chance to get answered. So please hop in the Discord. If you click the Discord join link, you're going to join with a yellow name. It's a data science hangout badge. Which is quickly becoming a data science hangout / data science lab one. But please, 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 that's the place to continue conversations. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Mike K. Smith asked a question in the Slido for Gabriela, and I would love it if he could ask that one live. So Rachel or Isabella will help Mike
Yep,
unmute.
I think I'm unmuted.
You are. Thanks, Mike. I'm going to put your question in the chat as well, okay?
So, hi, Gabriela. I'm really glad that you're here. I bet your recent blog post was well timed. But it was about high impact individual contributors and how organizations are maybe not ready for that kind of person. Can you give us a quick kind of summary of that blog post? I think it would be great for people to go and read that. It certainly chimed with me this morning when I read it. But also, what can organizations do for people who are high achieving, high skilled individual contributors?
Great question. And I'm going to send the link here on the chat. Yeah, so I started the Substack maybe 3, 4 weeks ago. And I don't like writing. Writing is not my strength. It's never been. But since the layoff, I had some challenges that I kind of like not organically I didn't think actually about the challenge, but I'm like, I'm going to take this year and I'm going to think all the challenges that I want to go through and I want to get better. One of them was writing. So I have done, let's say, two officials posts on Substack, one about the layoff and the second one about the high individual contributor. And let me give you some background on why I wrote about that. There is a huge discussion happening right now on like this high impact individual contributor. So people leaving the management or companies cutting the management layers or the management roles, and everybody now has to become a IC. The organization is now flat. And we are all going to be shipping products and features without waiting for engineering teams. Um, and every time I see some kind of trends, I always think about that several times before like having my thought like organized. Um, that is happening definitely in small companies that are AI native, small companies where this makes sense to have a flat organization. But if you think about like big organizations, it's very, very, very hard. Like it's going to be a mess. Like the managers that need to be orchestrating or working with people, and there is a human side, we still need that. But I also agree that with AI, the barrier to ship and to build something, it's very much lower now. Everybody can do it, but it doesn't mean that you are going to succeed. So that's what I talk about. Moving someone that is very successful or doing a very great job on the management side, moving back to YC, it might not be the best position if your company is not ready. Because like now, and I have a whole thing, a lot of things that I want to write about it. Everything looks like it's upside down. The metrics are all upside down. Now it's not about the quality, it's about the quantity. So the more you ship, the better you become in terms of like promotion. It's like all upside down. My my what I think is going to happen is like we are going to ship so many things that things are going to break and we have to go back to the old style organization. So I think if you are a small company, yes, the high individual contributor is great. It makes sense for everybody to be shipping and not waiting as much for the for the prioritization for sprints and to move fast. You need to move fast. The thing is like you need to move fast. If you don't move fast, you're going to be behind. Just look up like what happened with Anthropic. Uh, they are shipping a feature every day. So in a nutshell, that's it. So like be careful when you hear and listen what people are saying about this high individual contributor because it's very specific to the type of company. It's not going to be applicable for every company.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I am loving all of the questions in Slido. They're fantastic. And I have one from Gregory Power that is fantastic to go next. And I'd love to direct this one to Dan first to see what Dan thinks, because when I said AI, Dan was nodding his head. Gregory, are you available to unmute and ask that one live? I'm going to highlight it in the Slido and
Sure.
also put it in the chat. There he
Yeah.
is.
My question is, like, what are your thoughts on generative AI, and kind of the whole idea of agentic workflows, and we must embrace the machine spirits and their effect on the job market? Um, I don't know. I've used AI here and there, but I don't feel good using it when I do because, read about how it affects, retention and your ability to actually grow skills or debug the code that you write or write with it whenever you're using AI. But yeah, that's kind of my thoughts, feelings, and question.
I mean, I have a lot of thoughts here. So, and I don't know. exactly where to go with it. I mean, I feel like for a long time we've had like code complete, right? And we've had like whatever spell check and stuff like that, right? So there's a piece of this that is like the next level of spell check and code complete, where it's just kind of like, you already know how to do it, and it's just completing what you already know. So there's a way to see it as optimization there, right? So I think there's some way to say like, right, well, I know that's I see your face, but like, yeah, but yeah, there's a way to think about it like that. Does it make you stupider over time? I feel like, right, that's the big question that's out there. I'm not as worried about that. And maybe there's no way to stop it anyway. So we just have to kind of find a way to deal with it. How it affects the job market, I'm a little skeptical right now that the big cuts at these companies are actually from implementation of AI at their companies saving money. I feel like a lot of it is like saving face or showing that like they are the AI company of the future, that like there's all this pressure on everyone, on every board, on every CEO to do something with AI. So I feel like some of that is just like saving face on that. I haven't seen, I mean, and companies move slow, much slower than the outside world, right? So I haven't seen that of real transformative change within individual companies yet.
Is there anyone who would like to chime in on this? Makarand?
Yeah. My take is the change is here, and you have to adopt it. And change is always hard, right? I was talking to a friend at Amazon, and he was telling a development cycle that just yesterday we had a long chat, and I was asking him a lot of questions about what changed. He said the feature to development phase for him in the past was 6 months, reduced to 1 month, and team of 30 people, mostly because of AI and the recent launches by Anthropic has been really, really good, where even the prototyped UI came out pretty good. So change is there. Organizations are adapting to change. And on the software engineering side, agentic framework is going to be the future, especially for, things that are not mission critical. Like if I have a machine learning algorithm serving on the live to millions of customers, certainly not going to depend on AI to build a model for me and then, show that model to our users. Having said so, um, for non-critical mission, AI is becoming a lot more of a productivity boosters, and there are some companies that are adopting it pretty fast. Um, it's real, it's here, and moving and training about how to build an agent is going to be a skill set that all of us need to build on. That's my perspective on it. Yeah.
Great. Gabriela, do you want to chime in with a little bit before we hop on to the next question?
Um,
This is a big topic. It spans all of us, I think.
I know. Yeah, I'm thinking about the whole productivity. Yes, it's making us more product like productive, more. I'm blanking everything. So more productive. And but again, I'm very skeptical. I have a lot of opinions about this. I think we are going to have, well, there's a lot of AI slop happening, and it's changing. I feel like even though we don't agree sometimes, we have to follow. Otherwise, we don't get a position if we are not using those tools, right? Because everything is about being fast. I've been also like playing with some of like data analysis and how to use AI to help. But it's still like I'm not confident. I'm still go back to R and then I do some of my analysis in R and I do some comparison. So I don't know if at this point, like using Claude and their internal skills to do like data analysis, if I agree 100% or if I trust. So I've been trying to change the way that I think about this. And it's more like if I'm talking to a company, then I can say, oh, you have this thing, but you have to be careful of like the outputs. Please do double check. Make sure that you know what is happening behind the scene. Don't trust that 100%. For some things that there was a bottleneck for me. Yes, AI, it's great, especially around prototyping, a lot like production apps. That's working fine. But the whole analysis, I still think there is a lot of like domain knowledge that we need to have that I don't think AI is there to replace us at all.
Which feels like a good thing. I'm
Yeah.
glad that you think that.
Oh, you're
Sorry,
muted.
Libby. I went to admit somebody and I muted you on accident.
Rachel muted me. No. Oh,
Sorry.
well, I said, Gabriela, thank you so much. And I also said, I'm really glad that you think that because that makes me feel better as a data practitioner that I'm still relevant and that all of our brains that we've worked so hard to develop and all of our intuition around things in our industries are still valuable. I said I would like to hop to Abigail's question, which I think is really great. I highlighted it in the chat. There is an asterisk there, so I'm going to read it for her, putting it in the chat here. Abigail asked, how do technical interviews look these days for data scientists or data engineers? Are we allowing AI tools? Is there more or less coding? This is sort of a follow-on to this AI question. How has AI shifted things? And maybe we can cycle back through here. Dan, do you have any experience hiring lately?
Yeah, it's getting weird. It's getting weird. I mean, a couple things, you put a job open, you open up a job. It used to be like somebody had to, back in the primitive times, you had to know that the company existed, find that they were hiring, go prepare a resume, cover letter. Right now, it's like on LinkedIn, it's like apply, right? So we get like hundreds and hundreds of resumes, right, for any job, or thousands of resumes. So there's one question there, just like how do you sift through and how do you find the right candidate in that, which is just a weird problem that I don't think is well solved by anyone right now. And I'm sure people in the job market are trying to find that. In interviews, I interviewed someone and I swear they were listening to my question with ChatGPT and then just read me the answer. And that was not very impactful for me. So, but I feel like that's coming there. And then there becomes like an interesting philosophical question about should you be using AI in your technical interviews because it is now a tool that is available. And so if you're you know the leading edge of it, you're using all the tools all the time. So is that a good thing now that you're using all the AIs in your technical interviews, or are you a laggard if you're not? So I think there's some just we haven't caught up in some of our practices yet to where we are.
All right. Anyone else have any experience hiring recently and whether or not AI is allowed? But also, if you haven't hired recently, what would you think if somebody used AI? And would you set up your interview to allow them to use AI? Gabriela, I see your
Yeah,
wheels turning.
yeah, it's because I worked with a few startups. I was hiring for them this year in particular, and we allowed them to use whatever tool they wanted. It's like almost like an open book, but it doesn't mean that the coding was less. They could use any tool that they wanted, but they had to go through the thinking with us live. And then I would ask some questions where they would not have time to go to the AI. They would have to ask me. So like there are a lot of signals that we are trying to get. Can you use these AI tools, but can you also think strategically about the questions that we are asking you? And can you guide me through your thinking process as well? So we are trying to measure two things. So like, can you use these AI tools to help you accelerate some of the the questions or the answers for the questions? And the other thing is like, what is your thinking progress? What is your thinking process? One thing also, like I know that big companies, they are still doing the old school, like Google, old school interviews where you go to Google Docs and you have to do the coding exercise, which, it's crazy to think like it's still like in the old days of like coding in a blank page without any help with the linter and all the other things. And I think Makaran, you might be able to talk a little bit more about Google, but still like the Google Docs. They ask you a question, you have to write the coding over there without any help. I don't think they have changed that. At Microsoft, we didn't change that at all.
Yeah, no, I'm interviewing, right, Gabriela, and what I found with the large tech companies, it's the same pattern, right? The technical screen typically is mostly SQL, at least in the tech companies, followed by a product sense kind of interview. The next rounds, you do have technical rounds where you use the preferred language, be it Python or R these days, and where you're typically asked for some programming questions. Um, some companies like Apple and even Google for data science role also expect understanding of algorithms and may have some medium lead code kind of algorithmic questions asked in the context of data science. So that probably the specific question around the technical skills that are needed. Mostly, most of the other rounds are more about stakeholder management. What are the kind of business problems you have solved, and stuff like that. Having said so, even larger companies are changing. A friend of mine at Instacart just told me that they're now building questions around how do you manage workflows using AI within the teams, and the questions are more about uh, how do you leverage AI for productivity? And for an IC role, it's more about how do you use AI to become more productive? And for a managerial role, it is more about how do you think about the team uh, as a mix of AI tools and FTEs, right? So I think companies are moving fast. They're trying to integrate AI questions. I haven't encountered a lot of interviews where I was allowed to use AI tools. Most of the time, it is frowned down upon or is not looked upon in terms of allowing AI being used in an interview setting. And most companies are not ready yet, though I see that as a future.
Right. It does seem like it depends on the size of the company, which I think that we've heard from both Gabriela and Macarand is like these larger, more established companies, you might expect their interviews to look more like they did a few years ago. Large dinosaurs turn slowly is the phrase I hear a lot. The older and larger the company is, the harder it is for things to be changed institutionally. And then the newer, smaller companies might look a little bit different. I wanted to also share, Darren shared his experience in the chat as somebody who is a data science manager. He works in insurance. This is a great resource. Everybody go check out Darren's comment about his expectations on hiring. It's a fantastic point of view there. Okay, Ben Jepson asked a question of Dan, and we will help Benjamin Jepson unmute and ask his question live. I will put it in the chat. Ooh, do we have Benjamin?
It's unmuted, but maybe the microphone's not working.
Oh no, that's okay.
I could ask it.
Let's go.
But Ben had asked Dan, how would you recommend pivoting into statistical programming? He mentioned, I have a statistics degree, 10 years of R use with no clinical experience. Always a question of how to pivot into a new domain. Oh, there we go. Now we can hear you.
Okay, yeah, I switched mics, and this is a very specific question to me because this is a field I hadn't even considered. I love R, and I'm like, wow, if the industry's moving that way, I really want to get in on it. But I think that there's so many of us. We have different backgrounds. I mean, I've been in food manufacturing for a long time. I'm an industrial statistician. I have like tons of skills, and I think we all have very different but similar stories. It's like, how do you bridge the gap? It's like, okay, I have like three things but zero experience in that domain. So just looking for your ideas. I appreciate it.
No, I appreciate the question, Benjamin. I don't know. I don't know. I'm not going to give you a great answer. But one is networking, right? One is networking. People hire people that they know. That is just one thing that tends to be true. I think there are networking groups are in pharma or things like that. Work your way into those, maybe join a working group or something like that, just so you're known. And so you have like some experience in R and pharma. And then I'd say like, I think it was smaller companies, or like we have a lot of like contract research organizations, they're called CROs. They hire a lot of people. They hire a lot of more junior. You wouldn't exactly be junior because you have like so much experience, but you'd be like kind of like first round into the industry. So I think those are kind of the best ways to get the start, and then to come over to a bigger company. But I do want to put a plug that I just love when people come across industries. We have so much of an echo chamber of just like our own stuff. And when we get people from the outside who come in, they're like, why are you doing it like this? That is just the best. It just really shakes up our industry. So I'm really super excited about stuff like that. But I do recognize that it is difficult to get going.
Fantastic. I wanted to also mention, I put this in the chat. We just met some people from a CRO. CRO is a contract research organization. We talked with Kyle Austin and Martin Brown at PPD, which is Thermo Fisher Scientific's CRO arm. If you would like to check out that data science hangout, I believe it's on YouTube already. If it's not, it very shortly will be. And that's a fantastic one to kind of understand. We talked to both a straight statistics guy and a straight programming guy, and learned about their backgrounds and how they got there. And so it might be a couple people to reach out to and ask them if they're willing to talk about their experiences some more too. But you're in a great place to talk to other people. Thank you, Ben, for asking that question. It was fantastic. I have one in the Slido that I think is fantastic. Take us in a good direction. And Luke asked it with some asterisks next to it. So I'm going to pop it in the chat and I will ask it for Luke. But here it is so everybody can read it. He says, the positions I've taken are directly in the department that data is aimed to help, so not the data department itself. As a result, I end up being met with mistrust from the main technical or data department because I'm not directly in their department. How can I get over this trust hump to get the access that I need? I would like to give this one to Makran because you have sort of built data teams from the ground up, I think, in a couple of organizations, and I'm hoping that you have some insight into how Luke could shift or sort of influence this.
Yeah, sure. I'm just trying to reread the question. So the question is more about mistrust from the main tech department because they're not in their own department. Um, yeah, it's a
Because
very
Luke is
interesting.
downstream.
Yes, yes. I think influencing without authority is always hard, right? And what I'm hearing is what you're producing is not being trusted upon because it's a very different department. I can only provide examples of what happened with us. When we started and set up a team, we used to get a lot of ad hoc data requests from our stakeholders. And one of the challenges I faced was around helping our stakeholders to solve their questions themselves so that my team can actually do real work, right? Rather than just answering ad hoc questions. And we created a lot of interesting dashboards. But what we found was the dashboards were not getting used. Almost always, people will still reach out to us directly because they didn't trust the dashboard or they didn't know how to use the dashboard, one of them. The way for us forward was what I showed was to my VP at that point in time was the people who got promoted were the people who were using dashboard, right? And once I showed that to my VP and their directs, that became a powerful catalyst because all the VPs direct started pushing their people to use the dashboard. And that reduced the burden for my team in terms of answering ad hoc questions. So it's an indirect way trying to understand, why people don't have trust and can you do a top-down pressure, work with the leadership. In this scenario, that helped us because the leadership then got bought into, why their team should be using dashboards.
I
So
love
that's
it.
one way I can think of it.
Top
The trust,
down.
yeah, top down is one way I can think of because trust always, has something more underlying. Trust can be
Mhm.
because, especially in this environment, there's headcount pressures. Trust can be missed because of that, because the other team might be thinking about, hey, if we use this data, what does it mean in terms of headcount for our team, right? So you need to probably understand that, and depending on that, use either a top-down approach or build relationships in those teams.
Yeah, that's the other one is the bottom up. And Dan can speak to this a little bit. Dan and I agree on this point, which is go make friends, maybe talk to them, don't talk about work, get to know them as people.
Yeah,
Might open some doors.
you need trust, right? And I think this is, I don't know if you ever had like a centralized data group, or a centralized transformation group or something like that in any of the companies that you're in. And the first thing is like, why are these people telling me what I already know? Or like, why do these people think they're more experts than me? Like these are like real human emotions. The way to get through it is to build an actual relationship and then actually deliver value to them, right? So you're not pushing your agenda, right? You're pushing their agenda and you're like actually supporting them, and then they're going to see that you're a trustworthy partner.
Fantastic. I think it probably takes a combination of both of those things. Getting buy-in from leadership and having individuals trust you. Thank you, Luke, for that fantastic question. And we have one from Noor here. And Noor, your question has some replies in Slido. I hope that you have seen them so that when I mark this as answered, you don't lose them. But I would love for everyone to chime in as Noor asks her question, and give your experience in the chat too.
Oh no. Hello, can people hear me?
Yes, we hear you.
Okay, cool. Let me dig up what I said. Sorry, I'm on my other computer this
That's
time.
okay. I'm putting it in the chat right now, and it's also at the very top of the Slido.
Perfect. Hi, everyone. My name is Norse here. Thank you for spending your Thursday afternoon, hopefully, or morning with us. The job market, quite frankly, is abysmal for folks whose work may overlap with data science, but not have been called data science when they were employed, and didn't have the title of data scientist. What are tips to quote unquote sell yourself to the hiring manager? Like there's the obviously tweaking your resume and so forth, portfolios and so forth, but sort of like I've noticed there's an issue of like, okay, but you're not X field. And it's like, yes, but so many of these things are transferable. I promise I know what I'm doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Noor. All right, Gabriela, I would love to chat with you about this one because you mentioned, hey, all of our job titles are meaningless.
Yeah.
What do you think about how to sell yourself?
Yeah. So first of all, whatever title you have inside the company, it's very specific to your company. So you can have any title that you want in your resume. First of all, that's it. You might have inside your company, you might be like a quantitative analyst. What is a quantitative analyst in the job market? I don't know, right? So you can call yourself data science. If you are doing the work, you can say, I am a data scientist. And you can sell yourself as a data scientist. So on it and say, I am a data scientist. I've been doing X, Y, and Z. I have this impact. My work is. So it's completely fine. The company, they have very specific job titles inside the company. And I have seen so many interesting job titles that doesn't have reflect what we have in the industry. So that would be the first thing to change. You can add to your resume, add to your LinkedIn, you are a data scientist, period. You don't have to be justifying, oh, hey, I am a data scientist, but my title was something else inside my company. No. That's
I love
it.
that. I will also give you permission to change it on LinkedIn. No one is policing your LinkedIn and looking at it and going, oh, you didn't have that job title. I had a bunch of job titles that didn't make any sense for what I actually did. And so I just went and put plainly what I did on my LinkedIn. I developed Shiny apps. Was a data librarian or whatever. No one's
Yeah,
going to come and get you.
let me add something interesting. At Microsoft, a lot of people on my team went on the technical program manager ladder because they were developer advocates and there was no ladder for developer advocates per se. So internally, if you go into like the job role hierarchy, everybody was a TPM. But we were not doing TPM work. So remember that titles are internally. You can be whatever you want outside.
I want to point out something I saw in the chat, because Shivani said, "Hey, I've had recruiters telling me that my position must match the one on my payslip. I have had this too. I've had recruiters absolutely tear me apart because I needed to have a very, very specific degree. I needed to have a very, very specific job title at my previous places for specific amounts of times. Government jobs in the United States are very much like this. They're very, very picky. I don't know any way around that except for saying advocate for yourself and keep arguing, but that there are battles that you will not win, and that maybe that's okay in those specific areas. Macron, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I agree to this, right? First, let's be kind to ourselves. The market is very hard.
It is.
And in this market, people are getting very finicky about the requirements, right? If a role needs a master's degree in statistics, they are going to stick to it, no matter what. So first up, at least, that is the present scenario, and we need to acknowledge that. The second one for this specific question, how do you break into it? I plus one with, you can certainly say that you're a data scientist or function in a role of a data scientist, right? And try to pitch yourself. But to break in, like Dan was earlier mentioning, right? You may have to try startups or CRO or organizations that are more open to hire people with not an exact specific match, because that's the market right now. If you were talking about 3 to 4 years back, I think things would have been different. But right now, getting into a data science role when you don't have the relevant data science title in companies that are hiring for the specific requirement is hard. So just want to acknowledge that.
It is hard. Also, I've had jobs that I've fought to get in those places where they had those really, really tight requirements. I ended up hating the jobs. So maybe take that as your red flag that, hey, maybe I don't want to work there anyway. Okay, let's move on. In Slido, we have about 15 minutes left, and we have so many questions that we cannot get to them all. But I would love to do some rapid fire ones if we can, as like quick as possible. So I will hand each one to a person, and let's just give an answer, and we'll hop on. So one's from Zach. Zach has an asterisk next to his question, and I am going to hand this one to Dan randomly. He says, since layoffs seem to be happening all the time now, and it takes so much longer to find a new job, are any of you looking at independent consulting or self-employment? I know that Gabriela is. So, Dan, have you heard of anybody looking at these things, and do you think the job market is going to improve?
There's a lot in
What
there.
a
Are they
loaded
asking
question.
for whether they should go independent or whether companies like ours are going to look for independent contractors?
Do you think individuals should look into doing their own thing, freelancing, starting a consulting company, and just generally striking out on their own since it takes so long to find a job? I have friends who lost their jobs 2 years ago and have not found jobs yet.
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's a different world of running your own company or like independent contracting. So I feel like you have to be passionate about it. I wouldn't go after it if it was like you're like forced into it, right? Like this is all I could do. I think you're going to need to really have the passion and like the drive to go after things like that. That's just my personal opinion on that. But I know the job market is awful right now. I know the hiring process is broken right now. So I feel like networking and just kind of getting out there, or like I think Nate in the chat was talking about contribute to a package, something like that.
Hmm.
You could do some work. I guess it'd be unpaid, but you got to get out there and you're honing your skills and staying fresh and meeting people. So there's like just a lot of positives there.
Yep. Also, I will say my friends who have been unemployed for a long term have found new careers really in like working in crafts, in manufacturing, in all kinds of places where they never thought that their skills would be useful and have really built more meaningful things. So data science is not the only place to go, but they've all found ways to put their data brains to use. We had a question from Natasha. It's got an asterisk as well, so I will ask it and we'll pick somebody randomly. It says, it seems like a lot of resumes are immediately rejected by an AI. Any tips for getting past that point? Makaran, what do you think?
Yeah,
I'm
I
going to give this
mean,
one to you.
I recently there's a company called Callings.ai. The founder of that company, I talked to him, and he said a very interesting thing. He was like, the first thing he does with resumes these days is convert them into RTF, rich text format, simple plain text. And he's like, the reason for that is many of these AI tools don't understand any graphics, right? Or at least mess up some of the graphics, botch up some of the graphics. So, simple plain text without any images,
Yeah.
um, is the way to go for your resume. Um, Many people often miss that. Try to use tools. Callings.ai has a very good tool because I met the founder. I'm making that call where you can put your resume and see how the resume automatically, the AI translates that resume into, job requirements. It's a good first step because the first step for your resume is to be, adopted to AI tools. And you may want to test that out. And if it's not doing a good job, um, go to sites like Adobe. Maybe Adobe Careers has also an automated AI tool. Try them, see how your resume gets translated. Because if it doesn't get translated well or picked up well, then you're not going to get noticed. So that's the first thing. Second, I think there's websites like jobscan.ai or IO, I think, yeah. They give you what are the keywords missing for the job you're applying to. So try to have, keyword matching so that AI doesn't restrict your resume from going forward. So those are two tips I have, at least from a
Awesome.
perspective of how
Thank
to
you,
do it.
Makaran. All right, Gabriela, I'm going to throw another question your direction and let's see if we can give Gregory some advice here. Gregory says, what do you think of the ethical implications of using AI? Meta and NVIDIA were both caught violating authors' copyright and YouTube terms of service, respectively.
Why do I get the tough question? That's the toughest question to answer. Well, I have, as always, I have a lot to say. But let me share a good example. Yesterday, I was using Claude, and I was testing something, and then I was trying Claude to see if they could make up something for me. And then they said, "Oh no, you have to be careful. I should be not making up things for you in this X, Y, and Z." And I was like, "Oh, so you don't do everything that I ask you for? Great, that's awesome." So it was a good signal. But I would say there is a lot of like there are so many lawsuits against OpenAI and more OpenAI on the rights about especially like drawing and writings and this data being used to train all these enormous models. Um, I think we are going to be the only way that I see um, this happening is if there is lawsuits and getting a lot of money from these companies. Otherwise, or regulation. Otherwise, it's so hard. The whole all these teams, let me step back, but a little bit back up. All these companies, they had ethical AI team inside them. And maybe a year or 2 years ago, those teams were the first one to get laid off. So there is no team anymore, pretty much, in those companies where they are thinking and they are vetting and they are using the whole responsible AI umbrella to think about what are the implications that this product, if I put in the market, what is going to happen? Like what are the guardrails that I have to have in place, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. They still have, like at Microsoft, at least, we still had the responsible AI team, but a lot of them got laid off as well. So I don't know. I don't have much to say other than if there is no regulation, it's so hard to change the culture around it.
Yep. And it takes a long time to happen. Okay. Thank you, all three of you, for rapid fire answers on those. Thanks for humoring me. And we have a question from Adam Taggart, and it is directed to all of you. So let's cycle through it. We have 6 minutes left. Let's see if we can do it. Adam, are you available to ask yours live? Hey, Adam.
I thank you, everybody, for giving us your insight. I'm really appreciating how candid you all are, and I also appreciate how honest we all are about the situation. I'll get through the question quickly. Since you all think, to some degree or another, that C-suite might eventually realize that you can't just replace people with agentic AIs and systems, maybe they haven't quite cottoned on yet. Do you think that there's going to be, if not a hiring boom, maybe a low humming buzz of hiring in the foreseeable future?
We'd like to think, right? I think the foreseeable future, I think there's not much foreseeable right now. I think it's just like, it's so chaotic. I mean, everything, the entire world is just so chaotic right now. It's very hard to look into the future and try to say what's going to happen. You can kind of look at the past. I know we have a lot of statisticians on the call here, but like you can look at past and try to predict the future. Hard to say. Hard to say. It could be a huge boom for the economy, and you get all this productivity, and then you need 1 million AI engineers. So we hire a bunch of people, or it could automate everyone's job, and we need no people. So to me, I think it's hard to plan. I think prepare, the best we could do is just prepare, learn the tools, understand where we could actually add value to organizations, and go from there. I'd be interested in my colleagues here.
Thanks, Dan.
I am optimist on that front. To be honest, I'm on the second part where I think, this is going to lead to an economy of creation. Many people are going to try many ideas, and we'll see a boom of ideas, products that people were not able to, release into the market. Um, I personally think, as this settles down, in my opinion, AI has needed a lot of investment, especially in infrastructure. That's where a lot of jobs are getting lost. Meta suddenly realizing that they haven't invested enough as much as, let's say, Google or Microsoft has, and investing more has led to some of the job loss. Um, I do think the increase in productivity over a period of time certainly leads to increased jobs. So as this settles down, as the infrastructure costs go down, people start talking about uh, ROI on AI investments. We would lead to more productivity and more jobs in this domain. That's my personal take. Yeah.
Gabriela, what do you think?
I think we are going to get back to hiring. I don't know if it's going to be soon, but I would say probably like in 2-3 years, I think we are going to get back to the hiring part. It's going to be different, definitely. And I see the other thing that we've seen, because someone asked about LLC and the whole starting your own consulting. What I'm seeing now is like these people that are being laid off, they are creating other companies and they're creating other startups, and everything is like getting back again. It's like almost like a cycle. That's why, I've seen this happening before. At like 10 years ago. It's not the same scale, definitely not. But like I'm seeing the same cycle. So people are getting laid off before they were leaving, and they start a new company, and they start hiring, and then they get people that were laid off, and then it starts all over again. So many startups are happening right now. A lot of investment, a lot of money. People are being laid off, but some people are being added to this new startup world as well. So it's a little bit like it takes a while, but I think in like 2 years, starting 2 years, more or less 3, I'll see like everything going back again.
We're already in a cycle that started, I feel like, in 2021 when there was a bunch of overhiring. And then something happened at the end of 2022 and things started going the other direction. And so we're already kind of in a cycle that we're riding, and maybe we're not at the end of that yet. It's just a continuing thing. Well, we have 2 minutes left, and I don't want to say goodbye yet. Because Rachel has a really fun question for each of you to end with. We can start with Gabriela and go backwards. Rachel, you want
So
to
what?
go?
Yeah, my question was, what did you all want to be when you were a little kid?
A veterinarian.
Oh, yeah. Makarand, what about you? Do you have any little kid aspirations to share?
Maybe a pilot. Yeah.
Oh, that's a good one. Dan?
Yeah, I wanted to be a teacher, but then I realized I didn't want to be a teacher, and my goal was to just have some job.
I think all of us aspire to have some job right now, actually, as well. That one might be the most relatable one. I can tell you, I cycled through, definitely wanted to be a veterinarian until I realized that I couldn't handle blood or needles, and then my hopes were dashed. Rachel, what did you want to be?
Oh, I was just typing. I was trying to remember, but I think I played The Sims a lot, so I wanted to be like an interior designer and architect because my favorite part of The Sims was
Oh,
building the houses.
nice. I grew up with a sister who is an architect, and I learned the reality that architecture is so brutal and that the testing is so hard and the licensing is so hard that I think my hopes of that were quickly dashed. All right, everybody, this was so much fun. I hope that you put in the chat what you wanted to be when you were a little kid, because this was so fun to hear, but also hop into the Discord, into the Data Science Hangout channel. Please don't let us lose the momentum and the fun that we've had today. Thank you so much to Gabriela, to Dan, to Makran for joining us today. I hope you had fun.
Lots of it.
I sure did. Yes. Goodbye to everybody. Also, if you would like to save the chat today, which is full of resources, there is three dots in the top right, so you can do that. All of the questions that did not get asked today, I am going to do my very best to transfer them to the Discord server, to the Data Science Hangout channel. And even if we do not have everybody in there that is in our conversation right now, please hop in and give me your thoughts on them. I will share my thoughts. Maybe Rachel can share some of her thoughts. Um, and we will continue this good conversation. Again, if you have jobs that you are looking for or hiring for, please share them in the job board in the Discord channel so that we can help connect people with opportunities that they need. Okay, everybody, I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day, your long weekend coming up if you are in the United States. And I will also say next week on the Data Science Lab on Tuesday, we have work tree first coding with Barrett from Posit, who's going to be showing us Conductor, a sort of work tree first work tree orchestrator. It's going to be very technical, very interesting. We're all going to learn a lot. And then on the Hangout next week on Thursday, we are joined by Chris Gates. He's the director of bioinformatics core at the University of Michigan, and that's going to be a lot of fun. Chris Gates is here. He's waving to everybody on camera. He's going to be with us next week. Thanks, everybody. Goodbye, Dan. Goodbye, Gabriela. Goodbye, Makrand.